The entire base fell silent when Staff Sergeant Maria Santos stepped forward and began barking orders in fluent Pashto to the wounded Afghan interpreter. Colonel Bradley Morrison froze, his jaw dropping as he realized the janitor he'd been dismissing for weeks was performing battlefield triage with surgical precision. Every Marine in the courtyard snapped to attention, saluting the small woman in maintenance coveralls they had ridiculed just hours earlier. But to understand how we got here, I need to take you back to the beginning of what became the most humbling day in Camp Leatherneck's history. 3 weeks earlier, Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had arrived at Camp Leatherneck in Afghanistan's Helmand province carrying nothing but a worn duffel bag and transfer orders that raised more questions than answers. At 5'2" with calloused hands and sun-weathered features, she looked more like a maintenance worker than a Marine. Colonel Morrison barely glanced up from his paperwork when she reported for duty. "Another support staff transfer," he muttered to his aide. "Put her on base maintenance. We need someone reliable for the motor pool and gate cleaning." What Colonel Morrison didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Maria Santos carried more combat decorations than most of his senior staff combined. Her personnel file, buried deep in classified archives, told a different story. But Maria had requested this quiet assignment. After 12 deployments and countless nights that still haunted her dreams, she craved anonymity. She wanted to serve without the weight of expectations, without junior Marines looking at her with that mixture of awe and fear reserved for legends. For 3 weeks, Maria mopped floors, maintained vehicles, and cleaned the main gate checkpoint. The Marines called her Santos the Janitor behind her back, smirking as she methodically scrubbed away the desert dust that seemed to coat everything within hours. Colonel Morrison treated her like furniture, present but invisible. The first hint came during a routine equipment inspection. Maria was cleaning near the armory when she noticed Corporal Jenkins struggling with a jammed M4 rifle. Without thinking, she approached and field-stripped the weapon in 15 seconds, cleared the malfunction, and reassembled it before Jenkins could blink. "Where'd you learn that?" Jenkins asked, staring. "YouTube," Maria replied flatly, returning to her mop. The second incident happened during night watch. Private Rodriguez was on gate duty when Maria approached with her cleaning supplies. Through the thermal scope, Rodriguez spotted movement in the hills, 3 figures advancing in tactical formation. "Probable hostiles 2 clicks northwest," Maria whispered, appearing beside him like a ghost. "Radio it in, now." Rodriguez fumbled for his radio, but Maria was already moving, her eyes scanning the horizon with predatory focus. The figures disappeared, but Rodriguez swore he saw Maria track their movement with the precision of a seasoned spotter. "How did you?" Rodriguez started. "Lucky guess," Maria said, resuming her methodical gate cleaning. Colonel Morrison heard about these incidents through the rumor mill, but dismissed them as embellished barracks stories. In his mind, Maria Santos remained what she appeared, a quiet maintenance worker doing her job. He had no patience for junior Marines spinning tall tales about the janitor. The tension reached its breaking point during a surprise inspection. Brigadier General Patricia Hayes arrived unannounced, and Morrison was determined to showcase his tight operation. As they toured the facilities, General Hayes paused at the gate checkpoint where Maria was working. "Excellent attention to detail," Hayes commented, watching Maria's systematic approach to cleaning the guard post. "What's her background?" Morrison barely glanced in Maria's direction. "Support staff. Nothing special." General Hayes raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Later, she made a discreet inquiry about Maria's service record. What she discovered made her blood run cold. She immediately placed a call to Morrison's office, but it was too late. The crisis was already beginning. The attack came at 0347 hours on a moonless Thursday morning. Taliban fighters had infiltrated the outer perimeter, using a network of irrigation ditches, bypassing the main sensors. The first explosion shattered the communications tower, cutting off radio contact with nearby forward operating bases. The second blast targeted the medical bay, trapping the chief medical officer under debris. Maria was cleaning the vehicle bay when the alarm screamed to life. Through the chaos of running Marines and shouted orders, she heard something that made her blood freeze. The distinctive whistle of an incoming RPG round. Without hesitation, She tackled Corporal Jenkins to the ground, just as the projectile impacted where he'd been standing. "Stay down and follow my lead," she commanded. Her voice transformed from the quiet maintenance worker to something cold and lethal. Colonel Morrison was in his command bunker, struggling to coordinate a response with limited communications. The Taliban had chosen their timing perfectly. The base's quick reaction force was on patrol, leaving them with minimal defensive capabilities. Worse, reports were coming in of wounded Marines trapped in the medical bay. "Sir, we need to extract the medical personnel," Sergeant Major Williams reported. "But the route is too exposed. We're taking heavy fire from the east wall." Morrison pounded his fist on the table. In 23 years of service, he'd never felt so helpless. They needed someone with specialized extraction experience, but his most qualified personnel were either wounded or pinned down. That's when Maria appeared in the bunker doorway, no longer carrying a mop, but wearing full battle gear that seemed to materialize from nowhere. "Colonel, I need permission to extract the wounded from the medical bay," she said, her voice steady despite the explosions outside. Morrison stared at her in disbelief. "You're maintenance staff, Santos. Get to a bunker and—" "Sir, with respect, there are Marines dying in there," Maria interrupted. "I can get them out." "With what experience? You clean floors." Maria's eyes hardened. "Colonel, I'm giving you 30 seconds to make a decision. After that, I'm going anyway." The building shook from another impact. Through the window, Morrison could see muzzle flashes from the Taliban positions. His trained Marines were effectively pinned down, and time was running out for anyone trapped in the medical bay. "You'll get yourself killed," Morrison said. "Maybe," Maria replied, checking her sidearm with practiced efficiency. "But I won't let Marines die while I hide in a bunker." Before Morrison could respond, she was gone, moving through the chaos with purposeful determination that seemed impossible for a support staff member. What happened next became legend at Camp Leatherneck. Maria moved through the enemy fire like smoke, using cover and concealment techniques that belonged in special operations training manuals. She reached the medical bay in under 3 minutes, found 2 wounded Marines trapped under debris, and began treating their injuries with the skill of a combat medic. But it was what happened when the Taliban fighters breached the medical bay that revealed who Maria Santos really was. The first insurgent through the door never saw what killed him. Maria's knife found his throat in complete silence. The second fighter managed to raise his AK-47 before Maria's sidearm spoke twice, center mass. The third hesitated for a fatal half-second, and Maria's combat training took over. Disarm, break, neutralize. In 47 seconds, she had eliminated 3 enemy combatants and resumed treating the wounded Marines as if nothing had happened. "Holy shit," whispered Lance Corporal Davis, one of the trapped Marines. "Who are you?" Colonel Morrison arrived with reinforcements to find Maria performing surgery on the chief medical officer using nothing but battlefield supplies. Her hands moved with the precision of a trauma surgeon, while she simultaneously coordinated defensive positions in fluent Arabic with a recovered Afghan interpreter. That's when General Hayes's emergency call finally reached Morrison's radio operator. "Colonel Morrison," the voice crackled through static. "The Marine you have cleaning your gates. Her call sign is Ghost. She's got 305 confirmed kills across 12 deployments, 2 Silver Stars, a Bronze Star with V device, and a Congressional Medal of Honor that's still classified. She's the most decorated sniper in Marine Corps history." Morrison's radio fell from his hands as he watched Maria, Ghost, save his medical officer's life with hands steadier than a surgeon, as all while directing defensive fire from Marines who suddenly looked at her with the reverence reserved for legends. When the battle ended and the Taliban retreated, every Marine in that compound understood they had witnessed something extraordinary. Not just the tactical brilliance or the life-saving medical skills, but the humility of a warrior who had chosen to mop floors rather than live on her reputation. Colonel Morrison approached Maria as she finished treating the last wounded Marine. For the first time in weeks, he really saw her, not as support staff, but as the professional warrior she had always been. "Sergeant Santos," he said quietly, his voice heavy with newfound respect. "I owe you an apology. Maria looked up from her patient, her hands still bloody from surgery. "No, sir. You owe these Marines your attention. That's all any of us ever wanted." In that moment, Colonel Morrison realized he had spent 3 weeks learning the most important lesson of his military career. Never judge a warrior by the job they are willing to do, but by the lives they're willing to save. The maintenance uniform might have hidden her decorations, but it could never hide her character. And character, Morrison finally understood, was what made the difference between a good Marine and a legend.